Good work.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Can you hear me good?
Yes.
Awesome. It's a beautiful day today. It's a beautiful day to celebrate a beautiful life. A wonderful man who inspired many. When I was asked to speak today, I was humbled. I honestly do not feel worthy to speak to the ideals of such a great man. He believed in an America where all peoples, in spite of difference, embrace the common thread of what makes this nation great. The hope that is at the heart of the American experience was his dream. That we, each person, regardless of race, economic status, political affliction, or affiliation, it can be an affliction, and we say amen. Political affiliation, religious belief, the list of what makes us different can go on and on. That we find hope in the idea that each one has opportunity to achieve far greater than we could imagine. The hope that the American dream is built on. He would that we not run from what makes us different, but that we embrace those differences. That we would allow the best in each person to influence all to be a better people. That we would embrace the diversity of humankind and celebrate the beauty of glorious creation. What would Dr. King think of the world we live in today? Have we reached the hoped-for dream of unity he so elegantly spoke of throughout his life? Sadly, no. There is still a great deal of work to do, but the hope is still there. It is alive. It can still come to pass. The problem is we're led by fear of things that are different. We don't see the common thing, we see the thing that makes us different. The most evident thing that we see when we look at a man or a woman is not what they have done with their life, but the color of their skin. Something that no man or woman can do anything about. We are born gloriously as God created us to be born. And no one should be handicapped due to the color of their skin, their economic status, their conditions, what they were brought up in a religious home, their political beliefs. None of those things should handicap someone from being able to achieve the dream that was set out for us in the Constitution and is promised to each of us by the Bill of Rights. There is a quote that is going around, it's very popular right now, because it is a quote that was used over the campaign season by Governor Bill Lee as he was being attacked in campaign ads. What you say about others says a lot more about you than what it says about them. As we speak, as we go through our daily lives, the things that we choose to endorse by our behavior or by the words we say far more about us as a people, as an individual, than the person that those words are directed to. If they're filled with hate and malice, they are not even worth speaking. But you don't have to go much further than a Facebook page or any other form of social media or the internet to see that we've come to a time in our country where people are free to say whatever they want without any restriction or without any fear of repercussion for their words. Words filled with hate, desiring nothing but to incite anger amongst people and within this country. That does not set the ground for the dream that Dr. King had when he gave that famous speech. It doesn't set the ground for success for your children or your grandchildren. It sets the ground for a time of despair, for fear. Those differences that we have lead to fear. That fear leads to hate. Martin Luther King spoke to the idea of hate when he said, "I have decided to stick to love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." It's easier to hate someone than to love someone. It's easier to pick someone apart than it is to accept someone for who they are. Because it's easy to see someone and find their problems and deflect your eyes from your own problems, from your own shortcomings. More often than not, the fear that we have that causes us to hate someone is driven not because there's something about that person that we don't like, but because that person has something in them that makes us see something in ourselves that we don't like about us. When we give in to that hate, we destroy hope. Martin Luther King said, "Let no man pull you so low as to hate him." When you allow someone to take you to a position of hate rather than the platform of love, you have given them control. You are not in control when you are in a state of hatred towards anyone for any reason. When you look at someone because they are different and see them in a way that causes you to have bad thoughts or bad feelings about them, it does not say anything good about you. And it gives you this idea of control that is just not true. There's a book called The Energy Bus. The author of that book wrote in that book that each of us is the driver of our own bus. But every time we give someone else control in our lives, we're allowing them to drive our bus for us. I know I want to be the person who is directing the path for my life, not someone else. But when we give in to hate, we give over control. And we give up the ability to be who we've been called to be. So how do we defeat fear and hatred? Now, many of you may think the opposite of fear is courage, but I would challenge that. I believe the opposite of fear is love. We defeat that fear and hatred with love. Martin Luther King said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." And then in the Bible, 1 John 4:18 says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear." Because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. It is our job not to change a person. You cannot do that. It is our job and responsibility to love people. Yes. To love our neighbor as ourselves. To love ourselves. To love those who curse us. To love those who wish us harm. Love never fails. How do we show that love? Muhammad Ali said, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." So it's through service that we show that love one to another. How do we break down the hatred that divides this nation? By serving each other. By serving each other without desire of anything in return. To lay down our wants and our needs. To make a difference for the people who are on our left and on our right. Not just those next door, but those across the street, across the aisle, across this city. If we will serve from a position of love, we can truly make a difference. Service leads to unity. Abraham Lincoln has been credited from his house divided speech with saying, a house divided against itself cannot stand. But I would tell you that he took that from a scripture, Mark 3:25, and if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. We are all Americans, and this is our home. And if we are divided against each other, we cannot achieve the greatness that God has called us to. We cannot achieve the greatness for this nation that we are all been charged with achieving. We cannot lay the foundations for success for our children and for our children's children. And most of all, we will not see that dream come to pass. If we stay divided, then we will never see the dream come to fruition. That means that many of us need to humble ourselves and come off our high perches and stop judging people based upon what we see and start loving people based upon the fact that we and they are human beings created in the likeness of our Creator. Service inspires. I've gone all over the nation in response to disasters since the 2010 flood here in Nashville. And one of the stories that sticks out the most in my mind was in Plaquemines Parish after Hurricane Isaac. I'd taken a small service team from my church down to spend time making a difference in the lives of those who had been impacted, many of whom were stricken with poverty. They were being afflicted by something out of their control because the river is not at anyone's control. When the rains came, their parish flooded, and many of the surrounding areas flooded. And this group of people that I had, it was our last day serving, and we were walking around the community. We were trying to help as many people as possible. We were trying to wrap up work orders on homes that needed assistance. And we were walking through this neighborhood and working on this one particular house, and everyone was tired because it was nearing the end of the day, and this little elderly man came walking down the street. And he said, "I need help." Now my team looked at me and said, "Toby, we're tired. We just want to go eat." And I said, "Yes, but this man has asked for help. And there's no one else here. So I guess that means we need to help him." We walked down the street thinking this was going to be another long, arduous task, only to discover that he had lots of pine trees in his backyard, and the wind had knocked down thousands of pine cones. And at about 80 years old, he could not see how he could possibly move all those pine cones on his own. So we began the work of picking up pine cones and putting them into a wheelbarrow, wheeling them to the road and dumping them, not knowing what this man was doing while we were serving him. You see, this group of people, we all come from different walks of life, but we were united in the idea of serving the need of this man. And in so doing, we had a bond that is still not broken today. While we were cleaning up pine cones, this man felt it necessary to express his sincere gratitude. A man of very little means, he emptied his cupboards and prepared a meal for us. And we sat down and prayed with him and ate with him and showed him that he had value because we took time out of our day to invest time in him. It uplifts. Service uplifts others. John Bunyan says, "You have not lived today until you have done something for someone who can never repay you." Mother Teresa said, "Love is not patronizing, and charity isn't about pity. It is about love. Charity and love are the same. With charity, you give love. So don't just give money, but reach out your hand instead." As we reach out to those around us who need help, without judging them based on their circumstance or the color of their skin, we make a lasting impact in their lives. Service to others gives them hope. Barack Obama said, "The best way to not feel hopeless is to get up and do something. Don't wait for good things to happen to you. If you go out and make some good things happen, you will fill the world with hope. You will fill yourself with hope. Service also makes you ready to lead. And as I look around this room, I see many people who could lead a great revival of unity in this nation if we would get past what makes us different and gather together, seek out what makes us similar, and embrace those things. Because if serving someone is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. This is a weird name. Pilavachi? Thanks. Mike Pilavachi said that. You see, serving others is not about exalting ourselves. It's about lifting them up and giving them value. 1 Timothy 6:18 says, "Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share." If we all would find one person and serve them without any desire of anything in return, how much better would this world be? If we would devote ourselves to good works in our community, to good works in our neighborhoods, if we would devote ourselves to serving people rather than judging them, there would be less young men in prison. There would be less young women pregnant with no hope. We would be raising a generation of world changers who didn't fear what the next 10 to 20 years held, who were excited because they knew they had a support system around them of neighbors, friends, and family that loved them regardless of who they are or what they've done. If you want to change the world, you have to empower people. That's the only way you make any permanent, effective change. Any effective change in our world. Dr. King's life, his dream, empowered us to be the change we want to see. Regardless of who you are, or where you're from, or your level of education, or who your ancestors were and what they did, you can make a difference. You have value. Martin Luther King said this: "Everybody can be great because anybody can serve." You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. You can change the life of your neighbor by giving them your time. Doesn't have to be a lot. But if you would take 5 minutes out of your day to be there, maybe even just to listen, to hear what a person is going through, to lift them up and encourage them, you make a difference in that one life. Chris Jammy said, "Good works is giving to the poor and the helpless, but divine work is showing them their worth to the one who matters." What's stopping you? I want to ask each and every one of you individually, what is stopping you from making a difference in your community, in your neighborhood, in your church, in the groups that you gather with? What's stopping you from making a difference? The fear of what people might say, what they might think, or what they might do? Well, if that first quote that we started with, "What you say about others says a lot more about you than about them," holds true, then the opposite is also true. What others say about you says a lot more about them than it says about you, especially if it's driven from hatred and malice. If people have a problem with what you're doing and you're doing something good that's uplifting someone and helping them, then who cares what anyone says? Make a difference. Be that difference. You may only be one person, but one person can change the world. The Bible says that we are a light, and that we're to let that light shine. Our purpose as people, and many of us struggle with figuring that out, our purpose is to love. And let that love make a difference in the lives of people around us every day. Matthew 5:16 says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." So I ask you again, what's holding you back? What's stopping you? Martin Luther King's dream wasn't a dream that's going to happen unless we put legs to it. Every man, woman, and child in this room can make a difference. No one is too old or too young. You can serve. You can serve your community. Right next to you, there's somebody who needs you. They need you more than you can ever imagine. And you can be that change. You can be the fulfillment of that dream. And I think there is no greater way to honor him than to live that life that would be a life lived. Will Smith said it really well. If you're not making someone else's life better, then you're wasting your time. Your life will become better by making other lives better. I challenge you today to examine your life. Are you making other people's lives better? If you are, continue. If you're not, start. Thank you.